The Grand Hall of the Varelian Empire was larger than any city square on Earth. Its ceiling rose so high that clouds of soft light drifted beneath it, created by floating alien technology. Tall pillars shaped like twisting crystals lined the hall, each carved with symbols of victories, conquered worlds, and fallen civilizations. Delegates from dozens of alien species filled the chamber, their forms strange and colorful. This was a place where power was displayed openly, and mercy was rare. At the center of the hall stood a single human. He was not chained. He was not forced to his knees. He wore no shining armor or ceremonial clothing. His outfit was simple. Dark combat fabric worn at the edges with light plating that showed signs of repair. His boots were scuffed. His hands were bare. His face carried old scars, thin lines that spoke of battles long past. He stood straight, feet planted firmly on the polished floor, eyes forward. Many in the hall laughed quietly at the sight. Humans had lost the war. That was the story everyone believed. Earth had signed the surrender accords. Their fleets had vanished. Their colonies had gone silent. To the Varelian Empire and its allies, humanity was finished. Another short-lived species that reached too far, too fast. On a raised platform of living stone sat the royal family. At its center was the Queen of Varelia, ancient and composed, her silver-blue skin marked with patterns that glowed faintly. Her many eyes watched everything without emotion. Beside her stood her daughter, the princess, young and radiant, dressed in ceremonial armor that shimmered like liquid light. The princess leaned forward, studying the human with open amusement. "So this is a human warrior?" she said, her voice carrying easily across the hall. "I expected something taller, or, at least, more impressive." Laughter spread among the gathered delegates. The human did not react. The princess smiled wider, encouraged by the crowd. She stepped closer to the edge of the platform, her posture relaxed, her tone playful but sharp. "Tell me, human," she continued, "do all your soldiers look like this? Scarred, silent, and already defeated?" Still, the human said nothing. Some of the alien guards shifted their stance, weapons humming softly. Silence from a prisoner usually meant fear, but this silence felt different. It was heavy. Controlled, the princess tilted her head. "Did your translators fail, or have humans finally learned when to keep their mouths shut?" She laughed again, louder this time. The human warrior's eyes remained steady. He did not look at her directly, nor did he look away. His breathing was slow and even. His hands stayed relaxed at his sides. The princess felt a flicker of irritation. She was used to reactions, anger, pleading, defiance. Silence bored her. "You stand in the Grand Hall of the Varelian Empire," she said, her voice sharpening. "Kneel, human. Show respect to your betters." The command echoed across the chamber. Everyone watched. The human did not kneel. A murmur rippled through the hall. Some delegates leaned forward. Others exchanged looks. Disobedience was rare here, especially from a defeated species. The princess's smile faded. "Perhaps you did not hear me," she said. "I said kneel." She raised one hand slightly. The guards took a step forward, weapons glowing brighter. Still, the human did not move. He lifted his gaze just enough to meet hers fully for the first time. His eyes were dark, calm, and unreadable. There was no hatred in them. No fear, only focus. For a brief moment, the princess felt uncomfortable. She shook the feeling away and scoffed. "Stubborn to the end," she said. "That is why your kind lost." The human remained silent. High above them, the queen watched closely. Unlike her daughter, she did not laugh. Her gaze lingered on the human's posture, the way he stood balanced and ready, even without weapons. She noticed details others ignored. the controlled breathing, the absence of nervous movement, the quiet confidence that did not fit a conquered warrior. A small device in front of the queen pulsed with light. A diplomat beside her leaned in and whispered urgently, their voice low and strained. Data streamed across the queen's display, reports, intercepted signals, delayed intelligence that had arrived too late. The queen's expression changed. Far from the hall, deep in uncharted space, human fleets had not been destroyed. They had withdrawn, hidden themselves, adapted. New weapons had been tested, new alliances formed quietly. Humanity had not surrendered in weakness. It had paused. The queen's many eyes narrowed slightly. Below, the princess continued her mockery, unaware. "Look at him," she said to the crowd. "He thinks standing tall will change his fate. Your world belongs to history now. Human, your people will serve, or they will fade." The human warrior finally spoke. His voice was calm, steady, and clear. The hall fell quiet for surrender. The princess blinked, surprised that he had spoken at all. "And you mistake survival for strength?" She replied quickly, masking her momentary shock. "You are alone. Your kind is finished." The human shook his head once. Slowly, deliberately. "I am not alone," he said. "I am early." A chill moved through the chamber. Some laughed nervously. Others did not laugh at all. The queen straightened in her seat, her attention fully locked on the human now. She raised one hand slightly, and the guards paused where they stood. The princess turned toward her mother. "He is nothing," she said. "Let me finish this." Her eyes remained on the human warrior, who stood patiently, as if he had all the time in the universe. The laughter in the hall faded completely. Something had shifted. No one could say exactly what it was, only that the moment no longer felt like a victory celebration. It felt like the beginning of a realization, and the human, still standing, still silent, waited for the universe to catch up. The grand hall had shifted in energy. What had been amusement a moment ago was now tension, subtle but undeniable. The human warrior remained still, unmoving, a calm anchor in a sea of whispers and shifting eyes. Even the alien guards, trained to expect defiance only from the most desperate, hesitated. Their fingers hovered over weapons, but none advanced. The silence was more powerful than any command or insult. The princess, still standing above him on the raised platform, clenched her fists subtly. Her eyes, once gleaming with mockery, now flickered with confusion. This human. He was not frightened. He did not beg. He did not plead. He simply waited. The more she looked, the more frustrated she became. How could a creature so apparently weak, with no visible weapons, no technological advantage, and no allies in sight, have such control over the room? "Do you not understand your place?" she demanded. Her voice carried across the hall, sharp and commanding. "All humans kneel before the Varelian Empire. You are nothing but a prisoner of history." The human's lips barely moved, but his voice carried clearly, strong and even. "History remembers those who survive, princess. Those who adapt, those who refuse to bow, even when it seems impossible." A murmur ran through the crowd. Whispers spread like wildfire as the other delegates glanced at one another. Some leaned closer to their companions, trying to gauge the truth of his words. Could a human, a species considered broken and defeated, truly speak so confidently in the face of the Empire's power? The princess frowned. Her pride had been wounded, though she would never admit it. Pride was her armor. Yet this human warrior, standing quietly, speaking only when necessary, had pierced a subtle but deep layer of that armor. For the first time she questioned what she knew. Her laughter, which had once flowed easily, now caught in her throat. The queen observed all of this from her high seat. Her many eyes, each capable of perceiving different forms of energy, measured the human carefully. She could see the subtle strength in his aura, the way his body remained calm, how every micro-movement spoke of someone who had survived more than he let on. She leaned slightly toward her advisor and whispered, "Prepare for unexpected developments."
"The human is not ordinary. Observe him closely."
The advisor, a tall, thin alien with translucent skin and multifaceted eyes, nodded. He tapped his claws on a console, bringing up additional information. Streams of data and reconnaissance reports blinked in their holographic form above the panel. Intelligence, delayed and incomplete, was finally painting a different picture than the one the Empire had been shown when they believed Earth was fully defeated. "Your fleets," the Queen whispered, more to herself than to the princess. "They were never destroyed. Your colonies were never truly surrendered. Humanity hides, learns, and grows stronger in every silence." Her words did not escape the princess. She turned sharply, her cheeks tinged with the faintest glow of embarrassment, an alien equivalent of blushing. "Mother," she said, her voice trembling just enough to reveal her uncertainty. "They are weak. They were defeated. The surrender accords are clear." The Queen's eyes narrowed slightly, each iris focusing independently. "Appearances can deceive. Never underestimate a species capable of patience, Princess. Especially one that stands in the middle of this hall, silent, unbroken, unafraid." The princess's gaze snapped back to the human warrior. His eyes were dark, deep, and calm. He did not flinch. He did not bow. He simply waited, as though time itself bent around him, and he alone moved through it with perfect control. The princess felt a strange chill. She did not know it yet, but this was the beginning of a lesson she would never forget. The human finally spoke again. His voice was calm, yet carried weight, as if each word had been measured and chosen for maximum effect. "You speak of defeat, of surrender, of history. You are mistaken. Humanity has not surrendered. We have learned, we have endured, and we have hidden, only to emerge stronger than you imagine." A low murmur of disbelief ran through the chamber. Delegates whispered to one another, some shaking their heads, some widening their eyes in surprise. The air felt heavier, charged with a subtle tension that could be cut with the edge of a blade. The princess lifted her voice to interrupt, to assert control. "Silence! Do not pretend that words can change reality. Your people are broken. Your world is conquered. You are nothing." The human warrior tilted his head slightly. A small movement, but one full of intent. "Nothing?" he asked, voice quiet but echoing across the hall. "You mistake patience for weakness. You mistake humility for submission. Humanity is not nothing. We endure. We survive. And when we act with purpose, not cruelty." The princess's hands clenched at her sides. She looked toward her mother, hoping for support, but the Queen did not respond immediately. She leaned back, still studying the human, her gaze thoughtful. The quiet strength of this human spoke to centuries of instincts the Queen had developed. She had faced countless species. Most broke when threatened, most begged when powerless. But this human, this one, was different. Some delegates began shifting uncomfortably. They had mocked humanity freely, confident that the species would bow before the Empire. But now, uncertainty replaced arrogance. The human warrior had accomplished something that no weapon or fleet had done in centuries. He had made the Varelian Empire pause. The princess finally stepped closer, anger in her posture, pride in her voice. "You are arrogant, human. You dare to speak as though your species matters when we crushed your colonies, destroyed your fleets, and forced your leaders to sign surrender accords?" The human warrior remained still, calm, and unshaken. "I speak of truth," he said. "You see only what you have destroyed. You do not see what remains. You do not see what we have built quietly, in the shadows, while the Empire looked away. A sharp gasp ran through the audience. Some of the smaller delegates whispered frantically among themselves. What was he talking about? Could it be true? How could a single species survive in the face of total defeat? The princess, flushed with frustration, laughed bitterly. Delusions, she said, her voice trembling slightly. All of this is delusion. You are alone, surrounded by the might of the Varelian Empire. You cannot hope to change anything here. The human took a slow, deliberate step forward. Each step echoed in the polished floor of the hall. Alone? He asked, his voice steady and certain. I am never alone. Humanity is everywhere, always watching, always learning, always ready. Your empire has underestimated us for the last time. Even the guards tightened their stance slightly, unsure if this calm human meant to attack or simply to speak truth. The tension was palpable. The queen finally raised a hand. Silence fell instantly. The murmurs and whispers died down. All eyes returned to her. She spoke, her voice deep and commanding. Enough! The princess, frustrated and confused, tried to interrupt, but the queen's gaze stopped her. Do you understand now, princess? The queen said softly but firmly. Humans are not the defeated species you think them to be. They are resilient, patient, and cunning. This one before you is proof of that. The princess swallowed, her mouth dry. She looked at the human warrior again. For the first time, her laughter felt hollow. She realized that she had misjudged him. And in that misjudgment, she had made a subtle but grave error. The human warrior waited. He did not push further. He did not boast. He simply stood, a pillar of calm and confidence, letting his presence speak louder than any weapon or word. The queen continued, her eyes sharp and calculating. You will see, princess, that arrogance leads to mistakes. Underestimating an opponent can destroy more than pride. It can destroy an entire empire. Humanity is not a species to mock lightly. Learn this lesson well. The princess's cheeks burned. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came. She realized that this human, this singular warrior, had already won something the empire could not take from him. Respect, not forced respect, not demanded respect, but quiet, undeniable respect that had begun to grow in the minds of every observer in the hall. The human warrior finally lowered his gaze slightly, as though acknowledging the queen's authority while still maintaining his own dignity. He had made his point without striking a blow. He had shifted the balance of perception without firing a weapon. The delegates whispered, uncertain of what to do next. The princess, still on the platform, stared, a mixture of anger, embarrassment, and curiosity swirling within her. She realized this moment, this encounter, was changing the story of humanity's place in the galaxy, and she would remember it forever. And the human warrior remained calm, silent again, letting the hall absorb the weight of his presence. In that silence, the Grand Hall understood something important. Humans might be fewer in number, their technology sometimes older, their fleets sometimes hidden, but they were never weak. They were patient. They endured. And when the universe least expected it, they would rise. The queen's gaze lingered on him. Her mind worked quickly, calculating possibilities, reassessing strategies, and silently acknowledging that the human before her was not just a warrior. He was a symbol, a reminder that the Varelian Empire could never truly own what it had not understood. The princess finally stepped back, her pride wounded, but her mind awakened. She had underestimated humans. That mistake, she realized, could have consequences far greater than she imagined. And as the human warrior stood quietly in the center of the hall, every eye, every mind, and every heart in the room understood, in some small, undeniable way, that humanity had not been defeated. It had merely begun. The tension in the grand hall had reached a level that no laughter, no mockery, no display of power could break. Every delegate felt it, the subtle yet unshakable presence of the human warrior. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Even the guards, disciplined and trained to face the most dangerous opponents, hesitated. This human was unlike any prisoner they had ever seen. The princess, standing above him on her platform, tried to regain control. Her hands trembled slightly, though she forced herself to keep her posture straight. Her eyes, once sharp and mocking, now darted between the human and her mother. The queen remained silent, her gaze steady, studying the human as though weighing him on scales invisible to everyone else. "You are still standing," the princess said, her voice tighter than before, carrying a hint of desperation she would never admit. "You dare to defy the Varelian Empire?
You dare to refuse the command to kneel?"
The human warrior remained silent. His posture did not change. His calmness was a stark contrast to the princess's rising agitation. The delegates shifted uneasily, sensing the change in atmosphere. The room no longer felt like a celebration of conquest. It felt uncertain, fragile. "You will kneel now," the princess demanded again, her voice louder, sharper, "or face the consequences of your defiance." The human finally spoke, his voice measured, calm, and steady. "Kneeling does not prove loyalty. Submission does not prove strength. Humanity does not kneel to fear. We kneel only to principles we choose to honor." The hall went silent. Every eye turned to the princess, then to the queen. The guards shifted their weapons slightly, unsure if a single human could truly stand against them without bending. The delegates whispered nervously, some exchanging glances of disbelief, others studying the human with sudden respect. The queen raised one hand slowly, commanding silence that even the murmurs obeyed. "Enough," she said, her voice low, but carrying the authority of 1,000 years. "Princess, you have mocked this human long enough. You have underestimated him, as you have underestimated his entire species. Stop." The princess froze, her chest tight. Her mother's words cut through her pride like a sharp blade. She wanted to argue, to insist that humans were weak, but the weight of the queen's gaze silenced her. She knew her mother's judgment was final and absolute. The queen's eyes, moving independently, observed every detail: the human's stance, the calm of his breathing, the deliberate focus in his gaze. "He stands before you," the queen said slowly, "not because he fears you, but because he chooses to. That is strength. That is patience. That is what you must learn." The princess's fingers flexed, gripping the edge of the platform as her mind struggled with a mixture of anger and realization. For the first time, she felt the bitter taste of humility. She had mocked, insulted, and belittled, yet this human had not only endured it, but made her question everything she thought she knew.
"You will kneel," she hissed through gritted teeth, her voice trembling with frustration.
"Or you will regret it." The human warrior did not answer. He did not flinch. He simply waited, letting the weight of the moment press down on everyone in the hall. The queen's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Kneel. Now." The command was simple, clear, absolute. The hall went completely silent. The delegates stiffened. Even the princess froze. The word carried more weight than any threat, more power than any weapon. It was not a suggestion. It was a command, and it was the queen who spoke it. The princess's eyes widened in shock. Her mouth opened, then closed again. She had never seen her mother speak in such a tone. Not even the fiercest conquerors had heard it. The human warrior remained unmoving, but the queen's command created a tension so thick that it could be felt in every corner of the hall. The human warrior finally spoke, his voice calm and steady, almost respectful. "You command obedience," he said. "I understand. but kneeling is an act of choice, not fear.
I will honor the one who truly sees strength, not the one who demands it. The queen's eyes did not waver.
Then prove your wisdom, she said. Prove that your strength is not in rebellion alone. Prove that your patience, your judgment, and your courage can match your people's endurance. The human warrior took a slow step forward. Every movement was deliberate, every detail observed by the room. He did not kneel immediately. Instead, he bowed his head slightly, a gesture not of submission, but of recognition. It was subtle, yet it carried meaning. He acknowledged the queen's authority, not her power, and he did so with dignity. The princess's anger flared, but it was mixed with confusion. Her mother's command had shaken her certainty. For the first time, she saw a human not as a conquered being, but as someone capable of holding his own presence in the face of absolute power. The realization hit her harder than any blow could have. The human warrior finally knelt, but it was not in fear. It was not in surrender. It was deliberate, controlled, and dignified. He knelt in a way that demanded respect, not pity. The hall held its breath. Even the guards relaxed slightly, sensing that the moment had shifted, that the power balance had quietly moved in favor of the human, not through violence, but through sheer presence and integrity. The queen's eyes softened slightly, approvingly. She had expected nothing less. She had known that a true warrior of humanity would not bow in fear, only in acknowledgement of principles and wisdom. The princess looked down at the human warrior, her pride bruised, but her curiosity ignited. You kneel only because you choose," she said softly, more to herself than to him. "Not because you are forced." The human looked up at her, his eyes steady, calm, yet full of quiet strength. "Choice is the measure of true strength, princess," he said. "Not force, not mockery, not fear." A ripple of understanding moved through the hall. The delegates whispered, many of them realizing for the first time that humanity was not simply a conquered species. They had underestimated the patience, the wisdom, and the quiet strength of a people who endured beyond defeat. The princess stepped back, lowering her voice. I see now."
I misjudged you. I misjudged your people.
The human warrior remained kneeling, yet his presence was far from weak. It was commanding, quiet, and undeniable. He had shifted the perception of the room without a single act of aggression. The queen's voice carried over the hall again, firm and final. "Let this be a lesson, princess. Respect is earned through strength, patience, and wisdom, not arrogance, not mockery. Humanity has proven that today. Remember this lesson well, for it will guide the Empire more than any fleet or weapon ever could." The princess nodded silently, her cheeks faintly glowing. Pride battled with humility within her, but the lesson had been learned. For the first time, she truly understood that mocking humanity was a grave mistake. The human warrior rose slowly from his kneeling position, not in haste, not in triumph, but with quiet dignity. Each step he took resonated with the confidence of someone who had faced defeat and transformed it into strength. The hall watched in awe, the air still charged with the lingering tension of his presence. The queen's eyes glimmered, acknowledging the human's endurance and wisdom. She had seen countless species fall and rise, yet this one was different. The warrior before her was more than a fighter. He was a symbol of resilience, patience, and the quiet, unstoppable strength of humanity. The princess, humbled yet intrigued, stepped closer to her mother's side. "Mother," she whispered, "this human, he is remarkable. I thought we had won. I thought we had nothing to fear."
The queen nodded slowly. "You have learned your lesson, princess."
Humanity is never as simple as it appears. Never forget that underestimation is a weapon more dangerous than any fleet or army. The human warrior took one last look around the hall, his gaze steady, calm, and commanding. He did not gloat. He did not celebrate. He simply acknowledged the moment, allowing the room to understand that humanity's story was far from over. The Varelian Empire, for the first time, was forced to reconsider what it truly knew about a species it thought was broken. The princess, still recovering from the shock, looked at him once more. She realized that her mockery had been misplaced, that arrogance had blinded her, and that respect, true respect, was something humans earned in ways far subtler and more powerful than she had imagined. And the human warrior, quiet and composed, walked toward the edge of the platform, leaving a hall of stunned delegates, a humbled princess, and a calculating queen to ponder the beginning of a new understanding. In that moment, the universe seemed to pause. Humanity had proven something far greater than strength in battle. They had shown resilience, wisdom, and the power of patience. The lesson was clear. Humans might be underestimated, mocked, or pushed to the edge, but they would endure. And when they chose to act, the universe would remember who they were. The Grand Hall had changed that day, not with weapons, not with conquest, but with the quiet presence of one human warrior who refused to bow to fear, arrogance, or mockery. The story of humanity was far from finished. In fact, it had only just begun. The silence in the Grand Hall was heavy, but it was no longer tense with fear. It was filled with realization. Every delegate, every guard, and every alien noble felt it. The undeniable truth that had just unfolded before their eyes. Humanity, once dismissed as weak, had shown strength in the most subtle but powerful way. Patience, endurance, and unwavering dignity. The princess, standing on the raised platform, looked down at the human warrior and then at her mother. Her pride had been bruised, her arrogance exposed, but she was learning something far more important than victory or power. She was learning humility. She was learning that strength did not always roar. Sometimes it waited quietly until it was recognized. The queen's voice finally broke the silence, calm, firm, and carrying absolute authority.
This hall has witnessed a lesson today, not in fear.
Not in conquest, but in truth. Humanity is not a species to mock. They endure beyond defeat. They rise beyond expectation. They hold patience as their shield and resilience as their weapon. The princess lowered her head, a gesture of respect she had rarely given to anyone. Her voice, when she spoke, was quieter than before, thoughtful. I understand now. I mocked them because I believed I was superior. I underestimated them because I saw only weakness.
I see my mistake, Mother. This human, he represents more than a soldier.
He represents his people, and they are not weak. The human warrior, standing tall once more, did not respond immediately. He did not need to. His actions had already spoken louder than any words could. He had endured mockery, commands, and the weight of a mighty empire's gaze, and had emerged without fear, without submission, without anger. He had proven that humans were not defined by the wars they lost, but by the battles they endured and the lessons they carried forward. The queen studied him closely, her eyes glimmering with a mixture of admiration and calculation. Your species has survived challenges greater than most can imagine, she said. Your patience, your endurance, and your ability to remain unbroken under scrutiny are remarkable. Humanity is not just to be tolerated, it is to be respected. Remember this, princess, and remember it well. Underestimation can destroy even the strongest empire. The princess's shoulders stiffened as she absorbed her mother's words. She looked at the human warrior, her eyes now filled with a mixture of humility, curiosity, and newfound respect. She realized that her arrogance had blinded her to an essential truth. Humans were far more than they appeared, far more than their history of losses suggested. The human warrior finally spoke, his voice calm but carrying undeniable weight. Respect is earned through actions, not fear. Humans endure. They adapt, they learn. And when they act not for conquest alone, but for purpose, for principle, and for survival. The Empire has seen a small piece of what we are today. Know that there is far more beyond this hall. The delegates murmured among themselves, their previous confidence shaken. Some had openly mocked humanity before, certain that the species was broken, controlled, and irrelevant. Now, they realized that they had misjudged an entire civilization. They had assumed weakness where there was strategy. They had assumed fear where there was courage. They had assumed defeat where there was patience. The princess, stepping back slightly, looked to her mother once more. Mother, if humanity has endured in silence this long, what does that mean for the future? The queen's gaze was sharp, her voice steady. It means, princess, that humanity cannot be ignored. They cannot be mocked. They cannot be underestimated. And if we fail to respect them now, we may face consequences far greater than a lost battle. Learn this lesson well. The human warrior's eyes scanned the room. He saw the whispers, the glances, and the careful calculation in the delegates' expressions. He understood that humanity's story had shifted in this moment. Not through fleets, not through weapons, but through presence, dignity, and quiet strength. The Empire would never look at humans the same way again. The princess, still grappling with the lesson, stepped forward. I see now, she said.
I misjudged your people. I misjudged you.
I mocked you, and yet you stood without fear. You have shown me something I cannot ignore. Humanity is not defeated. Humanity endures. The human warrior inclined his head slightly, acknowledging her words, but not with arrogance. His presence was calm, controlled, and unshakable. He had no need to boast. He had no need to celebrate. His strength lay in his dignity, in his patience, and in the truth he carried, the truth of his people's endurance. The queen spoke again, her voice carrying through the hall with authority. Let it be known, in every corner of this chamber and across the Empire, that humanity has earned respect, not through submission, not through threats, not through violence alone, but through resilience, wisdom, and courage. Today marks a turning point. The princess nodded slowly, absorbing the weight of her mother's declaration. She realized that her previous understanding of power was incomplete. True strength was not always visible. True power was not always loud. And the human warrior before her had shown her both in a way she would never forget. The human warrior turned his gaze toward the delegates, speaking now to all who could hear. You may have conquered battles and worlds, but you cannot conquer a people who endure. You cannot defeat a species whose strength is measured not by fleets or weapons, but by courage, patience, and wisdom. Humanity will continue, and when we act, we do so with purpose beyond your expectations. The delegates shifted, some nodding quietly, some exchanging uncertain glances. They realized that they had witnessed not a display of aggression, but a demonstration of strength unlike any they had seen. Humanity had earned not fear, but respect. They had proven that resilience, dignity, and calm determination could wield more power than fleets or armies. The princess, humbled, looked at the human warrior with a mixture of awe and curiosity. You have taught me something I cannot unlearn, she said softly. Humanity is more than we believed. You are more than we expected. I will remember this. The human nodded slightly, a subtle acknowledgement, not of victory, but of understanding. He had made his point without anger, without force, without submission. The grand hall itself seemed to acknowledge it, as if the walls and pillars held their breath in recognition of the quiet triumph of humanity. The queen, satisfied, spoke once more. Let this lesson guide the Empire. Respect is not demanded. Respect is earned. Underestimating humanity would be a grave mistake. Let the princess learn from this. Let all present understand that strength comes in many forms. The princess bowed slightly to her mother, a gesture of respect and acceptance of the lesson. She turned her gaze to the human warrior, acknowledging the courage, patience, and wisdom he represented. She realized that the Empire had misjudged humanity, but now there was a chance to correct that perception and move forward with understanding. The human warrior stepped toward the platform, not aggressively, but with purpose. His movements were deliberate, each step measured, each gesture controlled. He stood before the princess and her mother, acknowledging them not as enemies, not as subjects, but as fellow beings capable of understanding and respect. "Today you have seen what humanity can endure," he said. "Tomorrow you will see what we can achieve. Remember this. Remember that patience and resilience are our weapons, and dignity is our shield. Respect is earned, not given, and we will continue to earn it every day." The grand hall was silent, not with fear, but with understanding. Delegates, guards, and nobles alike felt the weight of his words, the truth of his presence, and the undeniable force of a species that had endured beyond expectation. Humanity had not bowed in fear. Humanity had not faltered under mockery. Humanity had stood, patient, resilient, and strong. The princess, humbled and thoughtful, finally spoke. "I see now that strength is not always obvious. Power is not always loud. Courage can be quiet, and resilience can be subtle. Humanity has shown me that today, and I will not forget it." The human warrior inclined his head once more, acknowledging her words. He did not boast, he did not celebrate. He simply stood tall, the embodiment of everything his species represented: endurance, patience, and quiet strength. The queen's eyes softened slightly, a faint glimmer of approval in her gaze. She had watched countless species rise and fall, conquer and be conquered. But humans were different. They had survived, learned, and endured beyond expectation. And now the Empire would be forced to respect them, not because of fear, but because humanity had proven itself worthy of respect. The grand hall, once filled with mockery and arrogance, was now filled with understanding. Delegates whispered, guards adjusted their stance, and the princess looked on, humbled and thoughtful. Humanity had changed the perception of the entire chamber, not with weapons, not with fleets, but with presence, patience, and the quiet, undeniable force of dignity. The human warrior turned toward the exit, each step deliberate, controlled, and dignified. He had not needed to fight, he had not needed to shout. He had not needed to prove his strength through violence. His endurance, his patience, and his presence had spoken louder than any weapon ever could. The princess watched him go, her mind buzzing with realization. She understood now that mocking, underestimating, or dismissing a species like humanity could have consequences far greater than she had imagined. The lesson had been learned. The human warrior had not only represented his people, he had taught a galaxy a lesson in humility, patience, and respect. And as he left the hall, the whispers of delegates, the cautious nods of guards, and the thoughtful gaze of the queen all acknowledged the undeniable truth. Humanity endures. Humanity adapts. Humanity respects, but it cannot be underestimated. And when humanity acts, the universe listens. The story of the human warrior and the lesson he carried would be remembered in the Grand Hall forever. It was not a story of conquest or defeat. It was a story of resilience, patience, dignity, and the quiet, unstoppable force of a species that refused to bow to fear, arrogance, or mockery. And in that moment, the Empire understood, as did the princess and all who had witnessed it. Humanity had risen, not through war alone, but through endurance, wisdom, and the quiet power of dignity that no empire could ever break. The human warrior's presence remained even after he left, a symbol, a reminder, and a warning. Humanity was not to be underestimated. Humanity was not to be mocked. Humanity endured, and that endurance was stronger than any weapon in the galaxy.